Hello, friends of Herbie, and welcome back to this new episode of the Campfire Talks with Herbie. This episode, we will have a special guest, and there is a connection with the history of TameFlow. In particular, in the first book, the Hyperbook, in chapter 8, I'm talking about creating a shared vision at the team level. And in order to do that, we use some practices that we will learn more about this evening with Richard Kasperowski. Did I pronounce that correctly? Welcome, Richard. Welcome to this show.
Thanks for having me. Will Herbie be here?
Oh, I usually say that I am Herbie, so nice to meet you.
Likewise, nice to see you, Steve.
Well, welcome to the show. So first of all, where are you?
I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States.
Okay. Well, that's great to know. We have many people there in the States and in Canada. Mm-hmm. I will do the usual, short interview, and then, unlike the most of the campfires where I stand on a soapbox and tell my stories, I want to give you space.
This is my soapbox.
Oh, good, great. I want to give you space to explain about what we will see. So let's maybe jump into this. No, give me a short background. Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm Richard Kasperowski. I am a teacher, an author, coach, consultant kind of person. I focus on teams, team performance, high performance teams, and we can talk about what I mean when I say team later on. I grew up as a software developer. I discovered Agile along the way. I discovered this stuff you just talked about, core protocols, along the way. I read The Goal and that series of books along the way. Gosh, it's been about 8 years now. I've been running a boutique training and consulting business, as well as teaching a class at Harvard called Agile Software Development. So that's me.
It's Harvard.
Yeah.
That's cool. They teach Agile there. I didn't know that.
Well, I do.
You do.
An old professor. About 8 years ago, as I was sort of going off on my own, starting up this little boutique training company, I was feeling really grateful for all of the nice things I have in my life. And as part of that, I was reconnecting with people. One of the people I reconnected with was one of my former teachers. We had lunch one day. I told him, he was asking about my life, what I was doing. He was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. You should put together a syllabus and we should teach a course on that." So I did. I put together a syllabus. They put it in the course catalog. I didn't believe that it was really going to happen and people were signing up for it. I still didn't believe it was going to happen. And then the semester started and we had a bunch of students and it was really beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice story. And what's the context? I mean, what kind of students do you get, and what lines are they going for?
Yeah, so we teach it through the extension school and the summer school at Harvard. So they're both open enrollment. Anybody can take these courses. Most people are enrolled in a master's degree program in computer science, or that they have various tech-related master's degree programs that they run. But it could be anybody, right? So sometimes it's undergrads, sometimes it's Harvard College students, what you think of as when you say a Harvard student, that's a Harvard College student. It's in the computer science program. So there's a lot of code writing. This course, Agile Software Development, it's everything about Agile. It's the people stuff, the business stuff, the technical stuff. It was sort of my dream that people could leave a computer science program and actually know how to work together effectively, right? That people who are teaching Agile in industry, we shouldn't have to do this. That's really stupid that we have to teach people how to work together effectively. to build products that people love. We shouldn't have to do that. People should already know about that when they leave a computer science or any kind of tech program. So we get to do that now. And people.
So you're effectively reprogramming the peopleware.
Yeah, I like the way you say that. Yeah, we're reprogramming. They're reprogramming themselves.
Right.
I'm not doing it to them. They're volunteering. They're enrolling in the course. They're learning what they want to learn.
Excellent. I'm sure you must be kind to those folks.
It's super fun. They're always amazing students. And this summer it was really cool. I was very afraid because it was the first time we were doing it 100% online. I did a ton of work ahead of time to make sure, the way I teach, the way many people teach, it's totally interactive. It's all activities. There's no me lecturing and them listening and taking notes. That's a stupid way that's not teaching. That's not helping people learn. So we had to reprogram the entire course to be able to work online. And that totally worked. What was really cool about it being 100% online was that we had more students than ever before because they didn't have to travel to Boston for the summer to take the course.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
it was a more diverse group of students than ever before because they came from every continent. There were more women in the course than ever before. It was really awesome, this group of people we had this summer.
So what kind of tricks do you use to do these like online courses?
What kind of tricks? I'm going to show you one of my tricks later.
Okay.
One of the tricks is going at human speed and forcing myself to go at human speed. So I like to hand draw slides. That's one thing I do oftentimes. So, I'm going to share a little bit later on. I don't have a slide deck. I didn't feel like doing that today. I wanted to be more human. And we use video conferencing technology, usually Zoom, because it lets us do small group activities. And I discovered Miro this year. They've done a really good job. They've done a lot of nice work on enabling collaboration, really great online collaboration. Plus, if you're a teacher, they give you a free education license, right? So as a teacher at teaching in this program at Harvard, they gave me a license to use it. So I could invite all my students to collaborate with me inside Miro.
Oh, lucky you. I had to pay for that license instead.
It was really nice of them. And then, as a side effect, that I'm always talking about how great it is.
Yeah. No, effectively, I'm using Miro all the time. And I don't know if you've seen some of the previous campfires. I typically come in with, the soapbox we talked about before is always enhanced with with hand drawing. Exactly.
I also have a podium. We had a really good idea. How I don't know if you have a real background or a virtual background behind you. I have a green screen, but couldn't get the virtual background working today. Business idea. Somebody take this business idea and make it happen. We need video virtual foregrounds. Right,
that's
so
great.
I can be standing at a podium. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's the next step. So you've been around for a while. How did you actually get involved with this Agile coaching thing? And typically, I use how did you start with TameFlow? But I know that TameFlow is completely new for you, right?
It actually is. Well, I mean, the way you're talking about it, I know who Herbie is. I know all the story. I was retelling this story. Who's Herbie? My wife asked, and so I was telling her the story and sort of jogging my memory about this book that I read a long, long time ago. You've been around for a long time. Are you calling me old?
Oh, no.
Well, so I grew up as a software developer. I was a 12-year-old kid with a computer in my bedroom back when that was really unusual. I went to university. I went through
What computer was that? No, you must tell us now.
The first one was a Commodore VIC-20, and then I upgraded it to a Commodore 64. Naturally.
Wow.
And I had to crack it open. I ran a public BBS on it. This is like ancient history for people. I had it connected to a modem. It was connected full time to the modem, even at night. It would overheat, so I had to crack it open and run a fan across it. When I was 12 years old, 13 years old, it was really awesome fun.
Yeah,
grandfather.
those were the times. We didn't say you were old, right?
They're both gifts from my grandfather. And one year he gave me the VIC 20. The next year he took it away from me and gave me the 64. He took it away because he was an electronics hobbyist and he needed the video controller chip for a project he was working on. He was like following some schematic diagram and building a video game that was like Pong or Tank Battle or something. And he needed that video controller to connect it to a TV.
Okay, so it cannibalized from.
Yeah, so he gave me a computer, then he took it away, but he gave me another one. It was even better.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I grew up with a computer. It was really awesome. And my next door neighbor was a great mentor. He was a math teacher at a public high school in the neighboring town. And because he was the math teacher, they figured he must know something about computers. He didn't, but he learned fast. So my next door neighbor had computers and terminals in his house, and he ran the computer system. These were like, I guess you'd call them mini computers today. There were VAXs, stuff like that. So he gave me an account on all these computers, and I got to sort of play around and learn more things. I went through a computer science program at university. I've been working in tech, living around Boston. I lived here intentionally. There's an awesome tech industry around here, and I've been part of it for a long time. The Agile stuff happened from one of my first jobs. It turned out that the people I was working with, they were doing some really cool things. And this was before Agile was called Agile and before there was extreme programming. They were doing what today we would call continuous integration, for example. They just had a system that would always run. You'd commit your code, it would run the tests, it would integrate with everybody else's code. It would do all those things that today we call continuous integration. And you kind of had to write tests for this to happen. There was a lot of positive peer pressure to do the right things the right way.
Yeah.
And then the extreme programming book came out, 1999, 2000. I was working with some friends. We bought our own copies of the book. We read it. We adopted some of those practices, pairing, test-driven development, continuing with continuous integration. These were some of the best code writing experiences of my life. We wrote really great code together, and it encouraged me as I sort of became a team leader, a manager. I wanted to learn more and more and more. So I got introduced to Scrum. I used it with my teams. They were super successful. I discovered this stuff called core protocols. Anybody that I've shared it with, we've been amazing together. And and of course, the goal, theory of constraints, these ideas became really important to me as I was learning and exploring how to help teams be their most awesome.
Wow. So you're obviously like making a living in this sector. Is this gonna be your career when you grow up?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm old enough that I think I'm grown up now. Maybe even 5 years ago, I didn't feel quite grown up, like I was an imposter in a grown up body. This is what I do. I think I am grown up. This is what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. It is so cool that I get to write, I get to read, I get to share with people, connect with people, I get to help people go where they want to go, be who they want to be. It's a really good life, man.
Yeah, if you can make your passion into your life, lifestyle, that's a great thing to do, right? But what about your give us a personal thing. How was a typical day of yours?
All right, typical day. Today was not a typical day. Today I had a visit to the dentist, which was fascinating. It was my first visit to a healthcare setting since this COVID stuff started. But okay, here's a typical day. I'll wake up. Maybe we'll cuddle a little bit, wife and I, before we get out of bed. I'll usually make a cup of peppermint tea or something first thing. And second thing is either meditate or we practice yoga together. And meditation, that doesn't take that long. Yoga, that could be 60 minutes, 90 minutes. We'll get to work, read email, connect with people, probably go for a walk. These days we do a lot of walking. We live outside of city center, right? So there's not a ton of people around. Nobody ever came to my neighborhood as a tourist. So It's safe here. We don't have to wear masks when we go out walking because there aren't enough people. It's not there's not a really high density of people. We're safe, and we're avoiding the places where there are a lot of people. Like people would go to the Charles River to take a walk along the river. We don't go there anymore. There are too many people. So we'll take a walk, come back, do some more work. We'll make lunch together, typically a salad. Maybe we'll eat it outside these days. The weather's nice. We'll do some more work, make some afternoon tea, like this one right here, with my souvenir mug that I think it says "I was there," but it's in German, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's it.
I was there. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back, but I was there. We'll go for another walk. We'll make dinner together. Probably do some more work after dinner. Oh, I might even throw in a Spanish class sometime in the morning or the afternoon. It's my second language, and it's been super fun learning another language, being able to actually connect with people. I'm guessing English is not your first language. I've been having this experience lately where I can speak with people not in English, and there's some miracle happening. They understand me. And they respond to me not in English, and I understand them. It's like it's a miracle, man, and it's really cool. It's really cool.
Magic of English. Now you're right. My native language is Swedish, so it's a miracle we're having this conversation.
It's a miracle.
So after such an intense day, what makes you happy at the end of the day?
That's a funny question because I'm happy pretty much the whole day.
Wow.
And of course we'll throw in there. Sometimes I even do some paying work with a client.
That's optional.
Maybe teach a class. A couple of weeks ago I was teaching. It was my afternoons where I was doing this class, this Harvard course. Before that, I was doing some technical practice sessions with a client. We would write code together. We were practicing test-driven development and refactoring and working with legacy code. And the last time we met, we just followed the steps that we had been practicing. We took a bug and we just followed the steps, everything that you'd read about in a good book on refactoring or test-driven development. And it was trivial to fix the bug safely, knowing that we didn't break anything else. It was super fun. So I might do that, or last week we did a class. Turns out I've been teaching online for a while, but it's new to some people. So we've been doing my wife and I have been doing some classes, just sharing with the world how to teach online. For anybody who's interested, and turns out there are a lot of people interested right now.
Yeah.
So we're just introducing ways that you can effectively teach online to people. I mean, all of the stuff I get to do, this all makes me happy. At the end of the day, I'm happy. It's easy.
That's great. That's really great. And since you've been around for a while, now what are the insights you might have
for a while?
Yeah. But what are the best insights you have developed, through this professional experience? Where do you see this going?
Well, I mean, my best insight, you said it earlier, how fortunate I am, how fortunate you are. We get to do for a living what we're passionate about, what we love. That's the biggest insight I have. Find what you love and find a way to make it what you do every day, all the time. This has been amazing for me. Other insights, there's always new things to learn. There's always growth.
What are the challenges you're seeing?
Challenges I'm seeing. There's a whole bunch of people in the world who don't want the stuff I'm talking about, core protocols, Agile, this stuff. It's a challenge for them, I think, more than it is for me, when they say they want to learn Agile or how to have an amazing team, but they don't actually want to change anything, right? So there's I don't know, I forget what book that was, but this is 80% of the companies maybe. And there's let's say 79% of the companies. There's 19% of the companies they're all set. they know all this stuff that you're sharing and that I'm sharing. They don't actually need any help. And there's this like 2% in the middle. These are the people who are both interested and want to learn more, and will try to build new habits and make it the way they are. What's interesting and challenging is sort of finding that 2% of all the people, 2% of all the companies, and working with them and helping them change as little or as much as they want to.
So it sounds like you have to go fishing or something like that, and I hope to find them.
Fishing, at first it was fishing. Now I've been doing this for just long enough. I have just enough of a reputation. Now it's like every once in a while a fish jumps out of the water into my net.
Wow.
And the fish is like, hey, I want to learn something. Teach me something new. Teach me a new way to swim. Teach me a new way to breathe water. and we do it.
So we talked about the insights, we talked about the challenges, but what about rewards? Of course, you said you're always happy. I think that's incredible. But is there any particular thing that you like to highlight that was a rewarding moment, or what future rewards would you like to?
I don't know. What's rewarding? Like that experience I shared about. We're doing some training and coaching and new habit building with a technical team. It was so rewarding when we put it to work on a real work problem, and we just followed the steps. We've been doing a coding dojo for a few weeks and just teaching them and practicing building these habits about what you do. And then we took a real bug and we just did those habits. It was really awesome. These are the sorts of things that are rewarding when we take these ideas. People want to learn them as habits, and then we apply them to real life. That's super rewarding.
Right. My TameFlow activity is also supported by a small community that I'm setting up, and it's here at community.tameflow.com. I don't think you joined there yet. I'm sure you will. But in general, how do you see? How do you see? What kind of community do you see as useful, as good, in terms of like professional development, especially in this field of agile, of teaming, and so on?
So, what's a community that's good, that's effective? The community has to be open and welcoming. I don't know, during the last couple of years, people have been talking about inclusion as opposed to just diversity. And the friend described it to me like this. Diversity is like inviting a bunch of people to your party, a bunch of different kinds of people to your party. Inclusion is like going out of your way to make sure they all have a good time. Right? So we have to make sure it's good for people, make sure that they're not just invited, but they're truly welcome and valued, and we want them there, and we show them off. Like every one of our friends at a party, we show them off and introduce them to everybody else. That's the kind of community
in a moment I will ask you about the core protocols.
Sure.
But do you see like those things that you know about core protocols? How can they help like an online virtual community?
How can they help an online virtual community? Yeah, totally. So core protocols, we're sort of segueing it over into that now.
Let's jump right into it. Then maybe we pick up this point at the end.
Talk about it. Yeah.
So typically you have to ask me a question, but this time it's like the reverse. So I have to ask you.
Your question.
What's all the core protocols?
Well, that's like I don't know how culturally. How this translates culturally in America. Sometimes we say, I'm going to throw you a softball pitch, and you're going to this is an easy one. You're going to hit a home run on it. Why are you interested in this core protocol stuff, Steve?
Why? Yeah, well, that's an excellent question.
Well, thank you.
First of all, I work with with organizations, the whole company, not so much at the team level.
Mhm.
And one of the I call it founding patterns is the unity of purpose pattern.
Okay.
A company, if you have divisions, silos, units, departments, who typically are always fighting one another. Why? Because of budgets. Everyone needs to fight for their budget or for KPIs, different KPIs.
Mhm.
They will disperse a lot of energy in these infights rather than working together towards a greater purpose. So I always try that creating this unity of purpose, but you need to begin somewhere, and depending on where you are in the company, I have different ways of kicking this off. So if I am like at the top of the company, I use certain approaches. But if I am working with a team, well, the first thing, is to make a team out of a team, because most teams out there, well, they are called teams, but they are probably not what I and you intend when we say team, real teams. So that's where I have actually used the core protocols myself.
All right.
And even in very challenging situations where you had how can I say, people who were literally fighting one another. They couldn't enter the room and start shouting without starting shouting at one another.
Yeah.
So that's the context. Core protocols are part and parcel of the tool set that I have in TameFlow. But the reason why I wanted to have you here is that most of the people who are today getting involved with TameFlow, they probably don't know what the core protocols are, unless they might have read my first book, which it looks like this. Everyone is forgetting about it. This is the first one. Hyperproductive knowledge work performance. So, yeah, come on, tell us, what are these core protocols?
All right. Should I try sharing my screen? I'm going to draw some pictures.
Let's see if that works.
All right. This is new to me. Press the share screen button. It's going to share my entire screen.
You can pick a window if you want. Or
preferences. Oh no, this is going to be hard. We should have rehearsed this before we went on.
Well, we like to have fun, so let's make it.
Oh, see, I'm not going to be able to share my screen unless I exit and come back. So, because my operating system said so.
Oh, okay.
I enabled the screen recording permission for Chrome, and well, gosh, work until later. I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. Boom. Am I sharing anything?
Oh yeah, it's coming up here.
Perfect. All right.
Add it to the stream. There you go. Look.
Don't believe everything macOS tells you.
The Commodore 64 was so much better.
It was pretty darn good. I
don't
think I could do screen sharing with it, but it was pretty darn good. Yeah, so you had already shared my website. This is lots of different ways to contact me. So everybody here, you're invited to get in touch with me afterward. I was just going to draw some pictures about to explain this. You asked about things that I'm doing online. This is one of the things I do online. I draw pictures instead of like having preset slides. It helps keep me honest, really. So should I just jump right in? Should I start talking about like the science and research foundations of all of this? Where should we start?
Yeah, well, let's start from the end.
Start from the end.
Yes. I mean, what are the outcomes? Now, why should I be interested in the core protocols?
Let's start
now,
from
what
the
do
end.
I get from it? And then we see how we get there.
All right. Doing all the tech things to get everything working. You know, when you have an expensive pencil, it doesn't just work. You have to do some other stuff. So here's the end, right? You got a bunch of people. We'll call them a team. We're going to call them more than a team. We're going to call them a high-performing team or a high-performance team. We have choices. It doesn't really matter what we call them. This is the end. We have a team. What did you say? You said unity of purpose? Oops. Unity of purpose. I'm saying high performing or high performance. I'm going to write a really unusual word here. You could call it love or friendship. This is the end. Okay, this is the end. We have a group of people who are absolutely amazing together. When I say team, right? So this is a little bit of we were putting this off until now. When I say team, what I mean is a group of 2 or more people aligned with a common goal. So any group of 2 or more people.
No limits.
No limits. Although, you know, there's some good there's some research on team size, right? So we could talk about that too. But it's got to be more than one person. If it's one person, it's not a team. It's just you, and that's cool. I mean, you can do stuff, and you can be really awesome yourself. A group of 2 or more people, that's potentially a team, and aligned with a common goal. So unity of purpose, the words you're using. You have a common goal together, and you're pursuing it together. That's a team. And then high performing or high performance, a high performance team. I'm going to say it's a team. We already defined team. That is objectively better than other teams doing similar work.
That's interesting. How do you define objectively? How do you notice that?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I'll be able to write similar here. Boom, 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 boom. Similar work. Yeah, so it's objective, right? We can be with a group of people aligned with a common goal, and it can feel good, but that's not objective. I mean, I suppose there are ways to make that feeling objective. What we mean is it's noticeable, it's measurable, it's empirical, it's something perhaps quantitative. It doesn't have to be quantitative, but it's something observable that somebody outside the team could notice. And and they have to be doing similar work, right? So you could take a football team and an IT team. You can't compare them with each other. They're not doing similar work. You could take 2 football teams and compare them to each other, and we do this all the time. Even now in COVID era, they're playing football. They're being compared to each other. Who scores the most points? That's objective. You know which teams are objectively better than others. IT teams as well. We have ways of measuring the performance of IT teams, and we know which ones are better than others from observation and research. So this is what I mean by a high performance team. It's a team, a group of 2 or more people aligned with a common goal. And it's objectively better than other teams doing similar work. This is the outcome, right? This is the end. This is the result. It's really funny to start there. I've never started there, so thank you for that. All right, so there's where we start, or there's where we end. I don't know.
Okay, so you know, we know where we want to go. And that's important because it's consistent with this idea of the goal that we have from the story of Herbie. So you know that's the base camp, but we have to go across all the woods and hike through all the difficulties. So what are the difficulties, and how's our journey to get there?
Well, what's our journey to get there? So the story of this is, I mean, we've all had some kind of team that felt really good, and maybe we even measured how good it was in some way. And I used to look back at these teams and think, oh, well, that was really cool. I wish I could do that again. But I didn't really know what went into it. How could I do that again? It was like we got lucky. I worked with so many Scrum teams, so many teams doing this kind of Agile or that kind of Agile, and doing it like really well, really disciplined. But they still weren't high performing. Some were, some weren't. It was like we would get lucky sometimes. So it wasn't the Scrum stuff or the XP stuff. It was something else. And I started to explore this. Like, imagine people who don't know how to, on purpose, intentionally have a great team. You could pick a random thing at the end of every sprint and try it out. And maybe you'll get lucky after many, many sprints that one or two of those random things that you tried, you turned into a really good team. But if you don't know how to get there on purpose, if your Scrum Master, if the people on the team don't have these skills or ideas already, then it just is by accident. You get lucky if you're on a really great Scrum team or tech team of any kind, somebody has to know something to get you there, or you really do get lucky. That's cool if you get lucky. So I started exploring these different ways of getting there on purpose. The McCarthy's, you reference their book, you reference their material.
Maybe just tell the audience, because they probably don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same. I have their names right here on my book. It's based on the work of Jim McCarthy and Michelle McCarthy.
Hold on, let me just
focus. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So my first book, they encouraged me to write this. It's based on their work, right? So they wrote this nice book, Software for Your Head. They had this kind of experience where they were on a super high-performing team back in the mid-1990s at Microsoft. They were on a team that objectively outperformed other teams doing similar work. Objective means you could observe it from the outside. Somebody could measure it, and you could see that they were definitely better. So they were in this group of about 150 people at Microsoft. It was called the Compilers Group back then. It was the group that created Visual C++, a really cool product back in the mid 1990s. It was a really good product. They introduced a lot of things that people writing code take for granted today, like code complete, and I don't know, maybe they introduced the angry red underline when you write something that won't compile, it tells you before you even try to compile it. Templates, these wizards, these things that would sort of write code for you. So more people could write code than previously. Like, you didn't have to have a PhD in computer science to be able to write an application anymore. You had better tools now. So that was cool. And they invented some new business ideas. Like they introduced the idea of subscription software. So they would fix bugs, add new features, and the new version would just arrive at your desk. And of course, back then, it was like a physical thing, CDs or DVDs or something, and you'd have to install it. But it would just come to you. You didn't have to go to I don't even know if these stores exist anymore. It used to be like a giant supermarket grocery store of software, and you would literally get a shopping cart and push the shopping cart around the aisles in this giant store and pull things off the shelf and put them in and hand cash to the person at the front of the store to be able to take these boxes of software out with you.
Yeah, it was a physical product.
Physical software. That sounds weird. Physical software. Their team was not so good when they started, really good when they ended, objectively better than other teams doing similar work. Borland was a similar company. Borland actually went out of business at that time because they couldn't compete. That's objectively better than other teams doing similar work. Another team went out of business.
Now you're touching a nerve, You mentioned Borland, and you're touching a nerve here.
Maybe, and I know the Borland name lived on. Like some investment group bought it and sort of revived the brand and some of the tooling, but it was a different company, different owners, right? Yeah. So it actually went out of business.
It's interesting because in the infamous Hyperbook, the first chapter or two are about Borland. Oh. And speaking of unity of purpose, highlight how more or less during those years that you're mentioning, mm-hmm. There was a structural change in the company that the CEO, Philip Kahn, engaged quote professional management.
Yeah.
Before that, he was the founder, and he was like the spirit of the company.
Yep.
But with the advent of professional management, that driving force, the one other foundational pattern I have is the inspired leadership or inspired leader.
Yeah.
So with that leader, like no longer being there and giving a unit of purpose to the entire organization, it started crumbling apart.
Yeah, it wasn't the same
And then,
company.
of course, Microsoft took the opportunity and started making good stuff.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? Unless the guys of Portland were there to push Microsoft, they would never have done that. So.
It's true. There was competition, and
there was fierce competition.
So the way they tell their story, and I've had them tell the story a couple of times, they felt like they got lucky. It was a really awesome team, but they weren't really sure what went into it. They did a few things on purpose, but they weren't really sure if that's what made it such a great team. So they, I don't know the whole story behind how they were able to leave Microsoft, but they left Microsoft and they started up what they describe as a team research lab. And this is what they would do. And I'm gonna drop pictures on the screen again. In their team research lab.
Just a moment before you like add to the stream your screen. Let's just see a moment who's on here, because I start to see some comments.
Cool.
Let's hear. We have Michael Küster from Germany. It's learning time. Good vibes. Okay. Daniel Duaron, hi from Montreal. A gas tank from Boston.
We could drive to each other's homes right now.
Yeah, that's good. We have Jorge from Buenos Aires. Hello there. Rudiger Wolf from the United Kingdom. We have a comment from Daniel. Wherever you are from, you are not one gas tank away from Boston. Okay.
Yeah.
Anna from Montreal, the fortress of TameFlow. Okay.
Ooh, very cool.
Mikkel, yep, I was there. Correct. I think he refers to the Commodore 64.
The mug.
Yeah, well, the German mug.
I was there.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was there. Anna's commenting, I agree that communicating with people in your second or third language is an eye-opening experience. However, after the first elation, there are also some frustration and confusions. So just smile.
Smile.
That's good.
It's fun.
Daniel is saying the protocols do change the way you work, interact with people. Is resistance to protocol a thing?
It's a great question, Daniel. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, do you want to take it now, or shall we leave them later?
Let's tell a little more of the story and answer a couple of these questions too. So
okay, I'll give you the screen share again.
All right. So I don't know.
There.
We're talking about things I've never drawn or talked about before, but the McCarthys they opened up this team research lab, and what they did in their lab was it was a week-long experience. They would give people, a bunch of people would join them. Maybe it was 5 people, 10 people, 15 people, 20 people. A bunch of people would join. And over the course of 5 days, they would work on an assignment together, right? They would try to get something done. So the McCarthys would invite people into their lab, give them an assignment in 5 days to get it done. And during those 5 days, all kinds of things would happen. McCarthys would just watch. They observed. They were doing observational research, just watching what was happening as teams, as groups of people worked together to get something done. They did this quite a few times. And the more they did this, the more certain behavior patterns emerged, right? So they noticed that on the teams that were successful in their laboratory setting, the successful teams followed, or they exhibited, similar behavior patterns. And the McCarthys thought that was interesting. Jim and Michelle thought that was interesting. Teams that were successful in their experiment kind of thing, in their lab setting, they behaved similarly to each other. So then they had a hypothesis, and their hypothesis was that we could write down these behavior patterns in a way that other people could learn them. And if other people could learn these behavior patterns and do them, execute them, they would also be successful. Right? So
now, Richard, you're using a very significant word for TameFlow, pattern.
Yeah, pattern.
I think there is a connection to be made here.
All right, I'm gonna maybe I'll add this to the picture, right? So then we had some patterns, and I'm gonna call them behavior patterns. So we were talking before we went live. You were telling me about patterns. Depending on who I'm talking to, I describe this as patterns. In the 1990s, patterns were sort of in fashion amongst software developers. There were a couple of books that were published about software design patterns, and it drew from architectural patterns. And the McCarthys expressed these observed behaviors using a pattern language, using the template from design patterns and any other kind of pattern languages that existed at the time. It turned out to be a really good way to share these behavior patterns with other people, to make them learnable, to make them accessible. They're sort of like recipes, right? Recipes, templates, patterns. I use different words depending on who I'm talking to. But if you watch high-performing teams, there are certain patterns in the way they behave. They do things like they share how they're feeling with each other, and nobody tells them they're wrong for what they're feeling. They have the ability to opt in and opt out of situations. These are some patterns that you could observe and execute on purpose if you want to. They are able to express what is the most important thing for them individually and get aligned with each other. We were talking about unity of purpose, to get aligned with each other as a team, as a true unit, moving together, kind of the way they intended this to be heard in Scrum. In Scrum, the idea was we actually join together as if we are one, and we move toward the goal together. I've never seen an actual Scrum team like that, but that was the idea. Teams that adopt these behavior patterns from high successful teams, these protocol is another way to talk about this. They really do act like one unit moving together toward their goal successfully. Protocols, that they called their patterns protocols. Protocols, this word, before this word was used by us tech people, so us tech people, we think protocol, and it's the way two computers talk to each other. So there are no misunderstandings, and so they accomplish their mutual goal. Before computers were doing this, humans were doing this. You can think of diplomatic protocols or healthcare protocols. Diplomatic protocols, for example, it's the way representatives of different nations communicate with each other, behave with each other, to ensure that there are no misunderstandings and to ensure that they meet their mutual goals. Same thing with healthcare protocols. Repeatable patterns of behavior and speech and everything else that humans do to make sure we achieve our desired goals together effectively, with no misunderstandings. They called them protocols because they're thinking about it in this humans communicating with each other sense. And
this is, I think, a key point. TameFlow, I gave the name Tame the Flow originally. Actually, I have 4 flows: the operational flow, financial flow, informational flow, and psychological flow. All of the core protocols in my framing, TameFlow framing, are a mixture of psychological flow and informational flow.
All right.
So how do you communicate and ensure that the right message not only is expressed, but is also understood on the other side? And yes, there is an information aspect, and the information must transition from one brain to the other, but there must also be a psychological aspect that the the recipient must be open to receive this new information. So in practice, what are these core protocols? Can you summarize this?
Yeah. So in practice, I draw it as I'm a sort of a techie person, so I had this cute idea: draw it as a protocol stack. Right? There's a stack of protocols. It's not really a protocol stack, but it's a convenient way to talk about them. The foundation is positive bias. The next one up is freedom. The next one up is self-awareness. And then connection, productivity, and sort of a techie way of talking about it, error handling. So the observations match all of these behavior patterns. When you watch high-performing teams, these are things they do. When the McCarthys shared these with teams, they turned it into an experiment. They did the same thing. They would bring a group of people into their lab, give them an assignment in 5 days to get it done, and then teach them these behavior patterns that they noticed on successful teams. Every time they did that, these new teams were successful. And they shared it with people in industry. Same thing happened. Other people have done it. So we know it's not the McCarthys themselves that were the experimental variable or the intervention. It was these behaviors. And these behaviors are backed up by the science and research in high-performing teams. If you look at the science and research in high-performing teams, every one of these behaviors corresponds to something that scientists and researchers notice and measure in teams. So for example, safety. There are behavior patterns here that build safety in teams. Emotional intelligence, there are behavior patterns here that build emotional intelligence in the group. And effective decision-making and effective conflict resolution. There are behaviors for every one of these things that correlate with what people find in the academic research, right? This was I don't know what we could call it. This was not exactly academic research. They didn't have tenure in some university. They didn't need to publish to keep their jobs. They just found some interesting insights and shared them with people like us. One thing I should say is you can find all of these things at thecoreprotocols.org. They were tech people. They love the idea of freedom, free software. Today we might call it Creative Commons or open source. All of this stuff is freely available. Thecoreprotocols.org is one place where you can find all of this stuff. Actual behavior patterns. We're not going to talk about all of them, but related to freedom, we have check-in. Actually going to say we have pass and check out. And we'll talk about a couple of these. Related to self-awareness, we have check-in or emotion check-in. We have ask for help. We have personal alignment. Related to connection, we have investigate and intention check. Like all patterns, they have a title. They have a name so that you don't have to explain the whole thing. You can just say the name. And then they have, when it's appropriate and how it works, what are the steps, what's the recipe, and what are the agreements, what are the consequences, like you'd see with any pattern language kind of description. So investigate, intention check. I'm not going to name them all, but some important ones. Decider, resolution, perfection game. Names of these behaviors in thecoreprotocols.org, you could find the exact syntax, the steps, the recipes that you follow individually and together as a team. Really fundamental one down there in the self-awareness building block is check-in. You could call it the emotion check-in. The emotion check-in is basically like this. You figure out how you are feeling. Right, so here's you. You figure out how you're feeling and you say it out loud. You say, I feel blank. And this is really hard for some of us. For me, this was really hard to be able to understand what I'm feeling and say it in words, to make it a little easier and to make the communication clearer. Fill in the blank with mad, we'll say with glad, mad, sad, or afraid. And then you could optionally add more information about it. You don't have to do it at all. You could pass, you can opt out. To let your teammates know that you're done, you say, I'm in. This is sort of like end of transmission if we were doing computer protocols. And then when you do that, your teammates tell you they heard you. And they just say, welcome. And then another one of your teammates will do it. They'll share how they're feeling. We could do this right now. I'll demonstrate. You decide whether you want to do it. You could pass. You don't have to do this, Steve. It would go like this. I feel glad. This is really cool that you're hosting us here. This is really cool. And there's people engaged with us. Oh my God, I had no idea. I'm afraid. I don't usually do live stream events like this. And this is a platform I don't know, StreamYard. So I don't know what's going to happen, and I feel a little off balance because of it. Oh, I'm glad I went to the dentist this morning. It was long overdue. Mad. I got a cup of coffee at the place next door. That was all nice. Mad about anything? I don't think so. Sometimes I sort of iterate over this list of fundamental emotions that all humans feel. Sad. I don't see my son enough these days. He's 25. He lives only 3 miles away. What's that, like 5 kilometers away? But we don't get to interact a lot because of the current health situation. And I'm sad about that. And then I wrap it up by saying, I'm in. And
welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. You could do the same if you want. You don't have to.
Well, I'm more than glad that we're doing this, that you are telling the audience here about the core protocols. Unfortunately, you mentioned the dentist, and I'm afraid of that, and I have to go on Friday. So you survived it, and I have to face it. Mad, I am mad at this general situation that we see in the world, where people seem to be freaking out and getting crazy, but that also makes me sad because it shouldn't be like that. I'm in.
Welcome. And then we don't talk about each other's check-in. Part of what this does is it helps build safety and trust, right? That if I talked about what you just checked in with, if I shared it with somebody else, if I told you were wrong, you shouldn't be mad about that or afraid of that, then we would stop sharing with each other. We would lose trust and safety. And obviously, this builds emotional intelligence together, right? Where both individual emotional intelligence plus team emotional intelligence, which is one of the academic research areas associated with high-performing teams, it's called team emotional intelligence. And this is super easy to incorporate in a team. For teams that practice Scrum, sometimes they will add this on as a fourth piece of information they share with each other. Right. So for Scrum practitioners, people who don't know Scrum, they do this thing called they have a daily meeting. They share with each other what they got done toward their goal, what they got done in the last 24 hours toward their goal, what they plan to get done in the next 24 hours toward their goal, whether they got stuck on anything, and they could add this one on. How do you feel right now? And when they add this one on to their habit, they already had this habit of talking to each other at least once a day. Add this on, now they have a habit of personal awareness about how you're feeling and sharing that with other people on your team, connecting together more. This is one of the characteristics of high-performing teams. This is a pattern. If you watch high-performing teams, one of the things they do is share with each other how they're feeling. And nobody ever uses it as a weapon against them. It's totally safe to do this. Here's something you could try with your team. Just take this pattern, use it, or do something else. You could discover your own pattern for emotional sharing and connection. It doesn't matter. Just pick something. Here's an easy one to copy, a pattern that other people figured out and that you can just copy.
Richard, time flies when you have fun. I think we are coming to the end of this hour. If you want, we can stay a little bit longer if you can, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, because this is really so interesting. You already said that we can find more information there at the coreprotocol.org, and we also mentioned that people can get in touch with you at your Kasperowski.com. If you were to give like a final advice to folks who are practicing Agile in all possible flavors, but they are sort of, as you said, they are not really getting to these high-performing situation. What would you tell them to do? What can they do tomorrow, immediately?
What could they do tomorrow immediately? They could check out your work, check out my work. They could just add on emotion check-in, right? That is one easy thing to try. And in the spirit of we're smart people, we're scientific, we're empirical, we believe in experimenting and trying things out. Try it out and then decide whether it works for your team or not. Okay, one of the challenges is people rejecting practices like this before trying them out. And so one of the things I like to share with people is that there is really solid science and research on this. If you want to have a high-performing team, then you want to have high psychological safety and high team EI. The science.
We had that question, remember, from Daniel. Is the resistance the problem?
Yeah. So, I don't fight against resistance. If people don't want this, they don't have to do this. It's up to them. When I'm sharing it with people who invite me to share it and who are interested in it, one of the ways I share it is by talking about this science and research, and then they get to make the connections themselves. If I want a high-performing team, then I want EI, I want psych safety. To get EI and psych safety, I need to do something. I need to have some behaviors, and here's a set of behavior patterns that I could try, right? Once I know that there's science and research about high-performing teams, then it's my choice to either have a high-performing team or not. And if my answer is yes, I want to have a high-performing team, then I have to do something intentionally to get there. I mean, I could get lucky, it could happen by accident, or I could borrow, copy these behavior patterns, try them out for myself and my team. And here's one easy one, check in. This is hard. This is hard. This is not what normal people do. We don't normally share how we're feeling with each other. This is extraordinary. This is what high-performing teams do. Normal teams don't do this. Do you want to have a normal team or do you want to have an extraordinary team? It's your choice.
Wonderful. Daniel is also asking, how popular are the core protocols in Agile, or I would say in general?
How popular? Gosh, I don't know. I include them in the training program I do in industry. I include them in the Agile software development course I teach at Harvard. My goal is that everybody knows about these ideas and that we can all have these extraordinary experiences on purpose when we want to.
Okay, I think we can wrap it up here. So first of all, thank you, Richard, for this amazing presentation of the core protocols, even though we improvised a lot starting from the end, and and then backpedaling to the beginning. I am glad you came here to present these ideas, because they are so fundamental in TameFlow. Unfortunately, a lot of what I have been doing recently, especially in the last book, is very like operational, looking at metrics and finding the Herbie and so on and so forth. So most of the people who are approaching TameFlow just have not the perception that all these things that you have described are part and parcel of TameFlow, and in particular in the psychological and informational flow. Mm-hmm. So now, thank you again for giving this eye-opener, I believe, for many, and I think that we will cross paths again, because what you're doing is very significant and valuable.
I have a good feeling about that too, Steve. and thank you. This has been a great pleasure. I really had a lot of fun.
Excellent. So we'll be in touch again.
All right.
Goodbye. We're ending now.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks everybody who was here with us.